Peyton Reeson over special teams and Braden Knowles on defense. 3 individual performances I thought were really, really good. A lot of individual performances that were good, but those 3 really stood out to our staff, and I thought, we made some key plays and key moments. And, alongside of that, I think that we got great leadership from our seniors the other night, and I know this was announced on social media, but just wanted to make sure that we highlight our captains, Jerwan Newton, Maxon Hook, Tucker Gleason, Anthony Torres, and Dan Bolden, 5 guys that the team voted to be their leaders, and I thought were really 5 really good selections, guys that are veteran players that have done it on and off the field at a consistent high level their entire career. So excited for them, and as we move forward here, looking forward to playing UMass here at home, game 2. Looking forward to improvement from week 1 to week 2 that every team in the country is striving to get right now. And, obviously this team presents a bunch of challenges in their pressure on defense and, the quarterback and his consistency and how he played really well against us last year. And I'm sure he's looking forward to playing us again this year. So turning our focus towards UMass and hope to have a good week.
You always hear coaches talk about the jump from week 1 to week 2 is like the biggest
Mm-hmm.
thing. How true is that statement?
I think it's really unique to us in the sense that we have a 10-day break in between games, or a 9-day break in between games. So, I think preseason camp there's always a threshold and always a point in time through preseason where you got to cut off the growth, so to speak, and transition to trying to get ready to play week 1. And then you go through week 1's game and you see where you're really at in all 3 phases, and then you got to do a good job of trying to identify who you are, which you can really hang your hat on, and then ultimately at the end of the day try to fix some mistakes that were made in that first game. So, you want to take off the mistakes of the tape from game 1 to game 2. Some new situations will probably occur and things will pop up in game 2 that you probably didn't anticipate. And can you continually, master that growth process of fixing mistakes? And I think that's the key in football all the way around. And I think you see this is the first time you get a snapshot of what that looks like.
Is there a position in particular or kind of parts of the game that you think make the biggest leap from week 1 to week 2?
Well, I think all positions that require great communication, which in football all of them do, but the defensive line stunts and matched with blitzes, those should look a lot cleaner. I mean, those are full speed reps that you continue to get reps at. The offensive line's communication, the communication from coach to player, from sideline to, to the huddle, or to the communication to the quarterback's communication to the line of scrimmage and to the receivers. And, just any college football game you turned on this weekend, you found some type of mistake in those type of operational things. So taking those off the tape and trying to get that part of it corrected. I think every position has a little bit of stress in communication week 1 and, has a little bit of stake in the game and trying to, fix that from week 1 to week 2.
Was there anything that you were further pleased with after seeing it on film following the game?
No, I thought I had a good idea of kind of how things went throughout the course of the game. I mean, being able to look at the plays on the sideline right after my gosh, you could almost make your corrections for Sunday's practice right there on the sideline if you had somebody sitting there writing it all down with a piece of paper and a pen. But, I think you can get things communicated to the players. They can, even if it's a small correction, and then go back and revisit that on Sunday. But I thought we had a pretty good thought process and a good idea of what went wrong and what went right and throughout the course of the game. But a lot of things that are, that show up in the course of the first game that need corrected and need fixed that, I think we'll work really hard to address this week in practice.
Tackling can sometimes be a challenge going into that first game because you guys don't get to play other people. It's just you guys. You guys pretty impressive in terms of the tackling. It wasn't a whole lot of the tackling.
Yeah, I mean, I think we try to do a good job of working really hard at the things, everything but the actual physical piece of the tackle in practices. The tackling angles, the communication of where my help, knowing where my help is, and really really special teams and on defense. And I think, even on offense, our receiver catches the ball, our running back gets out of the, breaks out of the stack and is running down the field, and where are the perimeter players, where are their angles to find work and, get the ball to touchdown alley, so to speak, and try to get the, 6-yard gains to turn into 20-yard gains and 20-yard gains to turn into 50-yard gains. So we actually had a penalty in that area in the game the other night, which I thought was an iffy one, but doing really what he's coached to do there, to turn and find some work and go. So they're just trying to make sure that we get the details of this thing right, because the fundamentals, regardless of what it is, whether it's tackling, whether it's blocking, whether it's getting off blocks, that's going to be the driving force to your success all season long.
the game might have dictated it, but the amount of touches that all your running backs got, it was pretty balanced, very well balanced. Is there anything to take away from that kind of committee?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're trying to figure them out a little bit too. Still, we've seen the highlight type plays through spring practice, through summer workouts, and ultimately through fall camp, and we want to give those guys the opportunity to do it in a game. And I don't think in today's world you can just have one. You have to have multiple ready to play and play at a high level. So we'll continue to work through that, and I'm sure that some game, maybe this weekend, one guy will be the guy, and then at other times throughout the course of the year, somebody else will be the guy. So, we've seen that in the past. I mean, Jacquez Stewart's over 100 yards rushing in the championship game 2 years ago, and last year we had a 1,400-yard back. So it's, there's multiple guys that have to step up in tough moments and play well.
Are you pretty confident in that? I mean, you have those three guys, you have Clark as well, that you kind of have what you need if whoever you call upon?
Yeah, it's too late now if we don't. We feel really confident in those guys. We feel really, confident in their unique skill sets. Some guys bring something a little bit different to the table than the other ones. We got to do a good job building a plan around them that allows them to be successful when they get out there, whether that's running the football or catching it out of the backfield. And I think the main key thing that sometimes often gets overlooked is their ability to be a sixth pass protector, you know what I mean, and how much value do they add in pass protection. And I think they all did a good job of that, Thursday night.
What jumped out to you about the offensive line when you rewatched the game and any mistakes they had? Did you think it was all correctable things?
Yeah, I think I probably said this. I think I said this after the game. I mean, from my view of it, there's technical things that need to be corrected in the sense of a tackle misses, and at that point in time, he may be guessing, and trusting your technique and trusting in the assignment, trusting what you're coached to do. When there's not a coach standing behind you telling you what to do at practice, the line coaches are hovering around the offense and defensive line. They're within arm's length where they can say something and get it corrected, in real time, not throughout the course of a football game. So, the offensive line's ability to communicate and to communicate at a high level, will ultimately be the driving force to success for any football team throughout the course of the season, any good offense. So we want to run it effectively. We want to be able to use the run game to set up great play action passes. And then when we have to protect, we got to be able to protect. And that all requires great communication.
A few new players in the secondary. How would you assess their first game together as a unit?
Solid. Not a ton of communication breakdowns. I don't think it was a very, an overly complicated plan, and rightfully so. We wanted to let those guys get out and play and watch things happen organically. And, some scenarios did happen that we have to get corrected and get fixed. Others, I thought they did a great job communication and formation checks and those kind of things. And, this receiver goes in versus going out and what that's going to look like. So, we're going to get different levels of stress each and every week from the other team's passing attacks and ultimately, where the run fits are too. Different offenses create different stressors that way. This team will play with a little bit of tempo too that we're playing this week, so there's another element to that. But at the end of the day, it requires great communication, and as long as those guys are on the same page, we're either all right or we're all wrong type of thing, and we can live and fix the rest of it.
After the game, you talked about the helmet communication. What was using the tablets? Did you feel like that was beneficial?
Yeah, I think anytime you can, in real time, get the information to the players and allow them to go correct the mistakes that were just made, or maybe, find something that maybe later in the game that you want to maybe come back to and show them. I think that's a distinct advantage. You know what I mean? That's a great thing, and I think that allows you to. It's everybody learns differently, right? And I think a lot of players learn visually, and I think that's they hear what you're saying. Sometimes maybe they don't actually process it in the moment because of the the emotion and the heart rate being up, but when they can physically see it, I think that's a big deal.
Duquesne was someone you guys hadn't played before, so you guys are relying on film. UMass is someone else you just played last season. How much of a difference in preparation is that, having seen a team live versus just on film?
Well, I mean, this team kicked our tail for 30 minutes last year, if I'm remembering correctly. So, I mean, if our players are paying any attention to last year's tape, they would understand that, that was not a very welcoming hug everybody, pat everybody on the back environment at halftime last year. So, we know what the challenges are ahead. We know this is a team that's, creates a lot of problems from their, the complications that they try to create on defense, and will stress you offensively too. So, we have to be at our best. We have to be ready to play, and we have to have the mistakes corrected and that we've put on tape, and put the best plan forward for Saturday, and then ultimately at the end of the day, go execute that plan.
Juwan is a three-time captain, is that right?
Jawan is a three-time
Is he
captain.
the only one since you've been here who's been three-time?
I believe so.
And I guess what does that say about his leadership, what his teammates think of him?
I think that, that young man walks with a purpose. He doesn't say a whole lot, but when he says it, it carries a ton of weight because everybody knows that he's a self-starter and he's internally motivated to be great. Many young people, young players are externally motivated to be great. We can't walk out to the field. We can't walk off the bus. We can't walk to the hotel. We can't go get our snack after the game without some camera being in somebody's face, taking some picture to post on some mythical place that somebody's supposed to like and enjoy, and that's the world we live in. That guy don't care about any of that. That guy cares about being the best version of himself each and every day. Our players respect that. And then I think then as a young player, when you do things the right way and you maybe haven't made a ton of plays, there's probably this anxiety and this feeling in your gut that, man, I know this isn't right, but it's a hard time for me to say something. And when you've made as many plays as he has and you've done it for such a long time, that feeling then turns into this feeling in your gut that, like, I have to say something, and if I don't, I've let my team down. And I think that's where he's at. He was damn near a unanimous captain when I voted when the team voted for him. I mean, there's 115 plus votes, and he's who he is. I'm sure he didn't vote for himself, so there's only maybe one or two other guys that didn't vote for him. So, and probably those one or two guys don't understand what this program's about yet. And I think he's, like I said, I could go on for days talking about him because he means a lot to our football team on the field, but probably more off the field.
What do you think of the MAC in general in week one? Western Michigan, obviously, one, Akron, State, Ohio, Miami?
Didn't catch a lot of the games. Pretty much focus here, working on what we got to do and what we got to fix from our stuff. I saw some of the scores, obviously, and, caught a couple, clips and highlights of, but early in the year, week one football. The first game, a lot of things that didn't go the way that people, thought it was going to go. You know what I mean? Like, I did catch at the whatever time that I couldn't sleep the last half of the Oregon and Idaho game. That's week one football. A lot of mistakes made from a lot of different teams and a lot of different scenarios where I probably didn't think that was going to be the case a week and a half ago. But you have to bring it each and every week in college football. The transfer portal has allowed other teams to get better in a hurry. Free agency, so to speak, and you got to prepare your best each and every week to play the best on Saturday. And why wouldn't you, right? Like, you work 365 days a year for 12 opportunities. This isn't like basketball where there's a couple games a week and you play 40-some games in a season. Baseball, you play 60 or 80 games, however many they play. This is 12 times, and that is it. So I think it's a tremendous amount of responsibility individually to the players to do the best job they can preparing for those moments, and certainly we owe that to them as a coaching staff to do the same. So fix the mistakes from week one, go play week two, and try to get better each and every week.
One more UMass question. Obviously, Don Brown, Dr. Blitz, all this stuff. How how much does that add stress to game planning, and I don't know, is there an annoyance factor to how much they're going to pressure you?
Yeah, I think that he's done it at a really high level for a long time. He's obviously very good at what he does. You could just any team that he's been a part of they like to create havoc, they like to create turnovers, they like to get after the quarterback, and they like to put pressure on the offense to make really hard plays. And you got to be good in early downs. You got to make sure that you don't self-inflict with miscommunication and selfish things prior to the snap. But there is an element of you got to work really hard to get it figured out and to know where things are coming from to allow your players to have the best chance to be successful.